Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day four of this year's camp conference. I hope you guys are doing good this Sunday. I'm Eunice, your host for this session. Welcome to day four of Pathfinder Trek into College, a conference designed to inspire and guide Filipino students who are aspiring to study abroad. Come join us as we delve into engaging discussions, informative talks, and unlock a world of endless possibilities at Camp Study Abroad Conference, brought to you by LIMS Review Center, the Princeton Review Philippines, AUG Philippines, and AECC Philippines. Thank you so much for coming to this session. For this session, we'll be having a bird's eye view talk for Japan and Korea. The speakers will be discussing whether this particular location of their college played a role in their decision making, as well as other factors they considered when assessing their chosen college destination. They will also talk about their experience with the continent and country as a whole, followed by a more nuanced discussion on the specific location of their university. But before we proceed with the talk, let's lay down a few house rules. Number one, please do not spam the Q&A box or send any inappropriate messages. Everyone at camp is working very hard to make your conference experience amazing. Please be respectful at all times. And second, all questions must be sent in the Q&A box. Questions in the chat box might get lost in all the messages. Now that we're all familiar with the house rules, please allow me to introduce our speakers for this session. Introducing our speaker for Japan, Kyle, who also goes by Gene in Japan, is a third-year BS Chemistry undergraduate student under the Global Science Course program of the University of Tokyo. Currently, he is a mentorship manager for camp and has mentored students aspiring to pursue further studies abroad. He is also the vice president of student welfare for the Association of Filipino Students in Japan. When not pursuing his academic, extracurricular, and research obligations, he can be seen traveling or dancing as he is part of two dance organizations in the university. Let's all welcome Kyle.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Hello. So I'm Jean or Kyle. You can call me by any any name. Any's fine because basically in university I usually go by Jean, but in the Philippines I usually go by Kyle. And some people call me Francis as well. I don't know why. But anyways, this is my talk about applying to universities in Japan as well as university life in Japan. So thank you for being here. So basically, the fact that you're here means that you're probably interested in applying to a university in Asia. So basically, I would want to give like a bird's eye view, as the talk suggests, on how applications go and what life is like in Japan and whether or not it's a good fit for you. So basically, uh, if you're going to ask me what is studying Japan like, yeah, I got this from the university website. This is me in my sustainable chemistry class. So you can see me smiling, but I'm also somehow feeling existential dread from the chemistry involved. But anyways, this is basically a snapshot of what life is like in Japan. So basically, yes, if basically this is what you're going to expect, Of course, you're gonna have classes and you're gonna have a social life as well, hopefully. And you're gonna have other other things as well, like doing household chores, dorm chores, or like other stuff and other responsibilities. But basically, this is what life is like in Japan. So, a lot of you would probably ask why Japan. So, so a lot of you may have different reasons. Some of you may like manga or anime. Some of you are really in love with Japanese culture, and I'm not the biggest fan, but it kind of played a role in the process. So you may have different reasons as to why you went to Japan, but basically they're all valid. So now, basically, what requirements would you usually need? So basically, basically, what requirements would you need to apply to Japan? So basically, Japanese universities look at four things. So you have your test scores, your SAT, TOEFL. Some also accept the ACT, IELTS, but the SAT and the TOEFL are more famous. There's also a test that is unique to Japanese universities for international students called the EJU, the entrance exam for Japanese universities. So this is for international students. And there's also the next examinations, which I'll cover later on. But uh, I recommend that you take the SAT, especially if you're planning to apply or proceed to other destinations as well. So basically, you can use it as well for other universities in other countries. So yes, there's the test scores. You also need recommendations, of course, and usually in Japan, universities would appreciate it more, or they would even require students to get recommendations from teachers from the major that they're going to apply for. So for example, if you're going to apply for chemistry or biology, it would be best if you ask a STEM teacher, or if you ask a teacher in STEM, science, chem, or bio to write your recommendation. Or example, if you're going to apply for management, so you'd probably ask your accountancy or business teacher in high school. And so basically that's it for recommendations. You also have personal statements and essays. So basically the prompts for essays are pretty straightforward in Japan. So basically, what's your purpose? What are your academic plans in the future? It's not so much, it's not as creative as, the US universities. Like basically the questions are really, really straightforward. And basically, that's why it's called more of a personal statement. So it would also ask for your extracurriculars, but then again, extracurriculars isn't really given too much of a priority compared to American universities. And lastly, you have interviews. Similar to the personal statements and essays, these are also straightforward, and most of the time they are really short, but they are really intimidating because you have a lot of a lot of professors. It's a panel interview because in American universities, what they would do, they would bring in an alumni or an alumna officer, or basically an interviewer, and or an admissions officer, and basically they'll be the one to interview you one on one. But here in Japan, it's different because you basically have full professors, like a panel of professors, 3 to 5 professors interviewing you within the span of 15 minutes. So it was really intimidating, but well, I guess I survived. So yeah, these are the four things that Japanese universities require. So again, extracurriculars aren't really given much of a priority, but if you'll be given the chance to highlight them in your essay as needed. So that's it for the requirements. So when to apply for Japan? So there are two modes of entry. So basically there's the April entry or the spring entry. These are mostly for locals, for domestic applicants. Most of us would apply for the October entry. So this is for us. And basically this is the sample timeline. So before October, you must prepare your documents, take your tests, take the SAT, EJU, TOEFL, what have not, and basically you need to prepare those beforehand because the window for applications is very tight. So I wrote here October to January, but this really depends per university. Sometimes the window is only 2 weeks, 1 month. So some universities might have it earlier in the year, some universities have it later in the year. And after the application window, of course, you have to prepare for interviews. And one thing is that Japanese universities are very meticulous towards they're very meticulous towards whatever you submit. So if ever there's anything that that isn't correct, or isn't really that if there's anything that doesn't match, they will really contact you, and they will give you around 1 week or 2 weeks to rectify it. your form. So basically it doesn't end when you submit the recommendations, the forms and whatnot, because basically you have to revise your documents, and you also have to take the interviews as needed. And here's the billion-dollar question, I guess. Do you need to be proficient in Japanese to be accepted? Well, to be accepted in Japanese, no, not really. Especially if you're applying to international student, international programs rather, which are part of the Global 30. These are usually programs that are the programs by the Monbugakusho, or the Ministry of Education. It's an initiative that basically allows students to study in English. This is basically targeted for international students. And and yes, take note, you don't need Japanese to be accepted, but when you're here, it would be really useful if you know a bit of Japanese. It goes a long way. And but anyways, what are some of the universities that are offering admission to international universities? So you have University of Tokyo, you have the PEAK program. This is basically 4 year. These are basically 4 year liberal arts courses, and there are two tracks: environmental science and Japan in East Asia. And you also have GSE, which is a program I'm in. So it's a 2 year transfer course. So you take your first 2 years in the Philippines or anywhere else in the world. Then you basically transfer into your third year. And there's also IUP. What I know about IUP is that it's 4.5 years technically, because there's a preparatory semester. Then after that, gradually the classes will be in Japanese. But at first, it will mostly be in English. If I'm not mistaken. Other universities include Waseda University, Nagoya University, Kyoto University, Osaka University, and Sophia University. And there's many more, but these are usually the most popular universities for Filipino students and for other students in the world. So basically, how much does it cost to study in Japan? So this is usually a deal breaker. Usually in Japan, the tuition isn't so expensive compared to American universities. It's comparable to private universities here in the Philippines. It's usually 200,000 pesos annually. This is for the University of Tokyo. So this is what I pay annually. And your dormitory, if you're in a dormitory like me, it would usually cost 70,000 yen. It could be less, 50,000 yen, 40,000 yen. So this is 25,000 pesos monthly. And your daily expenses, of course you have to eat, you have to pay your utilities, pay your transportation. And when I summed it all up, it's probably 3,000 yen or 1,200 pesos daily. But if you're not but if you're not a gastador like me, probably it could be very less. It could be much less compared to this value. But yeah, this is basically a safe spot. I think I even spend more than this because I'm a gastador. I'm sad to say I'm a gastador. So I spent way too much. I'm very guilty of that. But basically this is how much how much does it this is basically the answer to how much does it cost to study in Japan. And of course, the fees are pretty high. So basically, you might want to ask, are there scholarships? And yes, there are. So there are two types of scholarships that are famous for students. The first one is the internal scholarships. These are offered by the school. And usually these are partial scholarships, or these are usually grants. Like for example, in my program, they would give you around 100,000 yen per month. Then basically that's your scholarship. You'll basically manage your finances. Basically, the tuition's not yet paid, so you have to use your grant to pay the tuition. For me, in my case, my dorm's paid. So basically, you just have to juggle it with tuition and food and whatnot. But there's also the government scholarships, which is the Monbugakusho scholarship, or the MEX. I think this is the most famous one. So I think I'll devote a little bit of time towards this. So I'm not so familiar, but based on my research, there are two ways to apply for MEX. So you have the embassy recommendation. Basically, you apply through the Embassy of Japan in Manila. And then there's also the university recommendation, where you go to the university and you basically get take the process, take the exam, and then once you've passed, you go to next and say, oh, I passed into this university, can I apply for a scholarship? But this path isn't usually taken even by graduate students. Usually a lot go through the embassy recommendation more. And basically, for the timeline for next, it's kind of weird because it starts in May. So you have to prepare the documents as with the process earlier. So basically, here you'll be applying as a May applicant or an April applicant. Yeah, May entrant. Then you'll submit your documents in May. Then you'll have the test and interview. Then after that, it's a long waiting game. You'll basically know your status, I think, in January. Then after that, then you'll enter in May the following year. So it's 1 year. It's 1 year of a waiting game. That's why not. I mean, a lot of people take the max scholarship, but a lot of people are pretty scared to take it because it's 1 year. It takes 1 year. So another thing to mention is that there's also one additional year for preparatory studies. Basically, you learn Japanese and other preparatory subjects. So basically, if you wait for 1 year and you basically take the preparatory course, and then and then and then 4 years of additional study for a bachelor's degree, it's 6 years. So that's also another thing to consider. But everything is fully paid. Your tuition's paid. Your your tuition is paid. Your uh your your tuition is paid, and you're given a stipend. So basically, there's that. And basically, there's a test for next. What are the contents of the there are there are three types of tests for humanities. You have mathematics, English, and Japanese. Then for STEM, it's not really higher mathematics, but I don't know what name to give it. Basically, it's a more advanced form of mathematics. Then you also have chemistry and biology or physics. Take note that you do not choose between biology or physics. It depends on your course. Example, if you're in medicine, of course you'll be taking biology and chemistry. I'm not sure if this is biology, and I think it's chemistry and biology. But if it's engineering, you're going to take chemistry and physics. So yes, for as I mentioned, for the max scholarship, you apply for the scholarship first regarding uh rather than the university itself. Then expect the process to last for a year. So basically, basically, uh, basically you'll apply for the scholarship, then receive your acceptance in January, then you'll prepare for 1 year, and then you'll attend your chosen university 1 year later. So it's a pretty long process. So it's a road that is relatively less traveled. But if you're not chasing time, then Max could be a good opportunity for you. So I think I've discussed about the requirements and scholarships. Now I want to discuss what life is like in Japan. And I want to start with academic life. Is it relaxed or hectic? And I could say to some degree it's relaxed in the middle of the semester, like at the start of the semester and in the middle of the semester. It's pretty relaxed because you just need to really attend the class and submit a final report or take the final exam. And sometimes midterms also happen, but what you're after is the final exam. So basically, a lot of people just grind for the final exam. Then yeah, it really depends on the professors. Sometimes there are reports, but basically this is the traditional way in Japan. I don't know if it's right to say traditional, but there's an increasing trend where professors basically adjust to like the system that we have here or in the United States, where there's more frequent reports, more frequent assignments, quizzes, just to check on students. But I think for the most part, it's still attendance. It's still attendance points and final exam points. Sometimes professors don't even take attendance, so it's just the final exam. So it really depends. But relatively, it's relaxed. It's relaxed, but this changes when you have laboratory responsibilities or research responsibilities, because basically when you're a research student, like a PhD student, master student, you basically have to grind for your thesis or your dissertation, and you need to immerse yourself in a lot of lab work. So relatively for undergraduates, it's still relaxed. It's what you make it basically. So this is basically a day in the life. This is basically the schedule for University of Tokyo. I'm not so familiar with the other universities, but yes. So 8:30 a.m. you have your first period. So you have to wake up at like 7 if you have 8 first period class. Sometimes I don't have first period class, so I don't wake up at all. So I don't wake up. No, I wake up later. So basically I have to wake up at 7 just to get to my 8:30 a.m. class, because transportation is efficient, but it takes a while. So basically 8:30 a.m. first period, 10:25 for second period, then lunch, then you have third period and fourth period. If you're a science student, you're gonna have labs the whole afternoon, most likely. Then you have fifth period or sixth period. These are usually rare. In my semester, I only had one fifth period class and one sixth period class. So basically, these are rare. Usually, most of your classes will be concentrated from the first to fourth period, and usually there's only a few sections that are offered for one class, because it's going to be a large size, and sometimes you're not even going to have the choice of your professor. So even for us in our third year, there's only one section per class, because basically the size of your major is usually around 50 or less. So in our case, we can, and even if it's larger, the professor would just probably have one large class. So you don't really have a choice for professors. So or this time slot even. So basically what you have is what you get. So that's another thing to take note. So but you can choose to take the classes that you want, especially in third year and fourth year. But anyways, for fifth period and sixth period, these are really rare cases. So you don't even have I I don't think my classmates usually have fifth period, sixth period. I think it's just me. So if I don't have fifth period classes, I usually have internship. Then I have circles or clubs. Uh so I'll discuss more about clubs later. And then after 8:45, if I don't have club, I'm usually studying or writing reports. So this is me in my regular day in the life. So it's a small collage. So basically I have 6 hours of sleep, because in reality, who does have 8 hours of sleep? Sometimes I even have less. I have 4 hours of sleep. Then I have 6 hours of classes every day. That includes lab. I have 2 hours of research internship work. So this is me with the autoclave. So I do in a nutshell, I do protein research. But I'm not sure if this is what I'm going to pursue for my bachelor's thesis. But that's a point of the internship. You try new things. And basically, I have 3 hours of studying and writing reports. Sometimes it's less. Let's be honest. Who studies? But sorry, I'm such a bad influence. But yeah, yeah. Sometimes I don't even study that much, especially during like during the lull period, like no exams, no anything. I don't study. I just write reports. Then that's usually just 1 hour tops. Then I have volunteer work, so I volunteer for different foundations, and of course camp and and uh and other organizations as well. And I have circles. I'll discuss circles later, what they are. And 2 hours for leisure time, or like eating, uh practicing dance. So basically, if I don't have circle work or circle practice, I usually just practice in the dorm, because in our dorm here we have like a studio. So I just go down to the exercise studio. Then I just practice dancing there if I'm not like pressed for time. Then I have leisure time. Then 2 hours a day is for transportation. I know this is counterintuitive, but while the Japan transportation system is very efficient, it's one of the most efficient systems in the world. the definition of nearness is very it's I think it's blown out of proportion. For me, the dorm that I am in, it's quite near, but it usually takes me an hour to get to campus. Basically, it's a 10-minute walk, 10-minute walk from the dorm to the station, 15 minutes 10 minutes train ride, then 5 minutes wait, then another 10 minutes train ride, then 15 minutes. So one 15 minutes walk. So it's usually 45 to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So basically that's the one thing to take note. Of course, it's not it's the system's very reliable. It's something that I really take for granted. But just take note that transportation takes a bit of time in the day. So 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 basically there. This isn't true for all times though. Like I said, I'm not a good student. So I probably sleep through classes. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But yeah, sometimes I don't get enough sleep, or like, but basically, that's life here. It's kind of normal. I probably rarely study, but I usually do when it's final season. In fact, I have finals next week, so I'm probably going to study after this. So there, so I think I'm making up for the times that I didn't study at all. But basically, this is fairly balanced. You can actually not choose not to participate in internship work or volunteer work. So basically, that was me last semester, and I was super burnt out. And I know it's counterintuitive to say that, oh, when you're burnt out, you should do less stuff. But for me, it's the opposite. I get less burnt out when I have more fulfilling stuff to do. I don't know why, but it works for me. So I think this schedule works for me. It might not work for everybody. So basically you can basically give or take time to any of this. You can allocate more time to leisure time or to studying, or if you're really interested in circles. Actually, I got a question for circles, so this is what I'm going to discuss next: circles and clubs. So in Japan, basically we call clubs circles. So circles are basic. I don't know the etymology of circles, but basically, I think it is where people come together. And let me tell you, Japan has really a lot of diverse circles. And basically, you also have inkares. Inkares are like intercollegiate circles. So university they're basically circles that are composed of people from different universities. So basically, you might have a club from the University of Tokyo, but they also accept students from other universities. That's the case for me. So there's a lot of diverse clubs. Basically, you have the purpose driven clubs, like you have foundations and whatnot, volunteer clubs, anything right up your alley talaga. Because there's also there if I'm not mistaken, there's also clubs that are dedicated to people who like mandarin oranges, people who like apples. I'm not kidding. People who like coffee, spice. And I don't and yeah, this is not to like judge them or ridicule them, but like basically I really like Japanese club culture because it's really about your passions. It's really about what you like. Because sometimes when we do extracurricular activities in the Philippines, it's usually for the sake of, oh, I want to look good on my resume. I'm sorry for being blunt, but usually that's the case. Like it's either you really have a passion, or basically I want to look good on my resume. It's either of the two. And and but in Japan, it's usually anything that you want. Like if you want to spot trains, or you want to like dance to K-pop like I do, or you want to dance, yeah, like also like me, uh, and if you, or even if you like coffee, oranges, apples, whatnot, then yes, there's a lot of clubs for you. There's a club for every passion, I think. And if there's none, you can just start your own club, start your own circle. It's kind of easy. Then there's also bukatsu. But bukatsu is very rigorous because you almost train every day. I have friends who like say that, oh, I used to be in uh this athletic club. Then it was hard because I had to practice almost every day, like 7 days a week. And and yeah, and yeah, those are the athletic clubs. So you basically have interest athletic clubs, and what else? What other clubs are there? So there's really a lot of clubs. So basically, like the host mentioned, I am part of two clubs. Well, I'm part of two clubs in the university. Aside from my foundations, I have the dance club and the K-pop dance club. So so basically there's really a lot for every passion, and you don't really have to be good at it. I'm not good at dancing, but I joined it because I like dancing, and there's no audition process. Basically they're the ones who will like recruit you, like, oh, we want you in the club. And basically that's why I joined, like, yeah. And also another thing to take note, because we come usually in October. International students come in October, but the Japanese school year starts in April. So there's like a gap. So most circles will only accept students starting April. So you really have to prepare for that one semester where you have nothing to do. If you're really interested, if you're really the kind of person who wants to get into clubs, you must really prepare. Because for me, it was so hard. Like there was no passion, there was no no community or anything. Because yeah, the basically the the clubs basically just accept starting starting April. So that's why I joined the circles in April. And another thing to take note, most of these circles are usually in Japanese. So you would really have to do your best to communicate, or at least fake it till you make it. You don't have to be super fluent. As long as they see they see you making an effort, it's okay. You can try to mingle with them. And yeah, they will also try to make an effort to speak in English. Like, a lot of Japanese people are really shy, but they will really make an effort to like talk to you. Like even the shyest person would make an effort talaga. So yeah, I guess that's it for circles or clubs. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the Q&A. So so uh so there's also an association of Filipino students in Japan. So as mentioned, I'm the vice president for student welfare, and basically we have a lot of events to welcome you here in Tokyo. So we have the welcome party, the Christmas party. We have recently we had a karaoke event, and basically there's a lot of opportunities for you to mingle with other students. And this is not open not just to undergraduate students, but also to graduate students, PhD students, and even working professionals in Japan. So basically you get to meet a lot of people. You really get to meet a lot of people. And yeah, working with AFSJ is really a really nice experience for me, and I was able to learn a lot from it as vice president for student welfare. So basically, if you're here in Japan, basically you can apply for membership, and basically you can like join our events. And some of our events don't even need membership. So 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 basically we're just here to connect you with other Filipino students in Japan, and it was really a helpful support system for me as well. So for regarding adjustment in Japan, there's also a lot of services for international students. So you have exchange programs, counseling. So basically, these are open to all students, even international students. In fact, uh, in fact, I'm able to go on an exchange to Thailand soon. So in a month or so. So basically, even if you're an international student, you can actually go for these opportunities. And there's also a lot of services like counseling, and they will really check up on you. So that's another good thing to note. There's a lot of people who are willing to listen to you. So basically, it really feels, at first when I went to Japan, of course it felt really lonely, and it felt really hard to adjust. now that I have like different groups, different circles, different people supporting me, and like different friends, I think I'm trying to make it made my life more fulfilling. Like even if I have a ton of responsibilities, it doesn't feel like I have a ton of responsibilities because all of them are fulfilling for me. So basically that boils down to the final two questions. So is it worth it to go to Japan? And I guess the answer for me is it really depends on what you make of it. Yes. So what you make of it talaga. So so it depends on you talaga. And should I do it? It also depends on you. And there's really a lot there's really a lot, a lot of opportunities in in Japan. And it's really what you make of it. And it's up for you. And basically, it's a whole discernment process. And basically, here at camp, we're willing to support you along the way as mentors, and help you make the right decision. But at the end of the day, I think it's your choice to make. So that is all. Thank you. If you want to reach me, you can reach me here, uh email, or you can also ask, the Q&A later. I'll be able to answer some of them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that informative talk, Kyle. I have a lot of questions as I also applied to Japan actually, but I didn't go through with it because of the tuition and the dorms. It's really totoo talaga sinabi, ang mataas siya. Moving on to our speaker for Korea, he is a sophomore at Handong Global University, located at Pohang, South Korea, majoring in counseling psychology and English. He is a member of the what do you say this? Carmichael Residential College and senior member of HGU's Zizzy Dance Org. When he is not busy focusing on academics, he enjoys spending his free time hanging out with friends in person and on Discord, playing games and going to thrift shops. Everyone, a round of applause for Noah Agustin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, just like how I was introduced earlier, my name is Noah Agustin, and I'm honored to be the guest speaker for your conference's Country Talk on South Korea. So, 네, 안녕하세요, 여러분. 저는 한동대학교에서 22학번 노아 체대 학부생입니다. 반갑습니다. Let me just share my screen. Ayun. So, as I mentioned earlier, I am very honored to be asked to speak here today, but I am also very surprised. I only recently completed my first year at Handong Global University in the city of Pohang, South Korea. And because it's been only a year, I don't consider myself to be an expert by any means when it comes to the country. On the other hand, it is advantageous that the first times of the experience and the processes involved with the application are still fresh in my memory. On a personal note, I've always dreamed of studying abroad, but with no particular country in mind. But I always wrote it off as an impossibility. So I can't even begin to describe how it feels to say that I already completed 1 year there. So I won't bother describing it. I'm sure a lot of you are more interested in how I got here, what are the things to know, and what should you expect. For the sake of this talk, this is how I arranged the presentation. So why should you choose Korea? And then the two biggest concerns of living in Korea, which is language and money. And then the hows of the application process. So now that we're on the same page, first things first, why Korea? Throughout this conference, you will hear a lot of different talks about different countries and the important things to know about each as well. But why would you consider going to Korea in the first place? I'm sure those of you who are interested in it have your own pre-existing reasons already, but for me, one of the main answers I have is culture. In my process of looking for different places for college abroad, I really looked for many different countries, many different places, and I spoke to different friends as well who were going to school in those places. And I learned that there is something uniquely different and special about living and studying in a Asian non-English speaking country rather than a Western English speaking country. That statement does pose some challenges like the language, but it also opens up a lot more possibilities of growth and development. I'm sure the other speakers from the countries in Asia will also agree that there is a lot that we can learn culturally, just personally from going to these different countries, going to these different cultures. And so that's one of the main reasons I looked for a school in South Korea. It's also not a secret that K culture is exponentially growing in popularity. Um, and I personally want to see what kind of advantages maybe could grow from using this connection and from schooling here. I know that's not much to go off of, but in the end, I want to focus on giving you guys the information on what to do if you do decide to go. So that's the next part, the two biggest concerns when it comes to studying in Korea. As all of you are aware, Korea is a non-English speaking country. And while you can get away with going there for a vacation, maybe a week or two or three, and not know the language, it's much harder to live there for 4 years as well as study there if you don't learn it. So, do we need to learn it? Yes, of course we do. But will you have to study and take your classes with Korean as the medium? That depends. In my university, it is advertised to be an international and global university, so they offer courses with English as the main medium. But even in this university, it does not apply to all majors of study. For example, I have a double major in counseling psychology and in English, and I've been lucky enough to have all my courses offered in English so far. But if you take a course such as IT or computer science, design, those rarely have professors who can offer the courses in English. So international students who want to take those courses will have to make do with learning them in Korean. Even in majors where there are English courses provided, sometimes the professor in charge will be gone for a semester or they won't offer that course in English. So even in that situation, you may have to take some courses in Korean, but it depends. Again, it depends on the university and it depends on the situation per university. And lastly, will you have the chance to be able to learn the language? Yes, of course. You will be living there. Actually, it's a really great opportunity to learn the language once you're there already, because you get used to it much faster. And some universities require you to go to Korea or study the language online for 1 year first before you start university. In my school, we take our Korean language courses over the 4 years, and we have to pass all of them in order to graduate. So it's a requirement that we need to meet before we're permitted to graduate. And instead of studying it for a year first and then going to college, we study it over the 4 years of our university life already. It also helps when you need to fulfill credits. If the Korean language courses are already part of recognized credit, it is very beneficial that way. Next up is money. South Korea is a first world country, so it has high quality everything, transportation, living, everything is good there. So The living expenses and tuition are both quite pricey. So, where do we start? Before I get to the numbers that may scare you, scholarships. Whenever someone asks me how I'm able to go to university in Korea, it's not even close to possible without a scholarship. Scholarship wise, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Global Korean Scholarship that comes with a lot of benefits. I don't have that scholarship. So I don't really know much about it. But from my quick research, I found that this year they're only accepting one grant from the Philippines. Um, but again, it has a lot of benefits, a lot of allowance. Your accommodation is paid for, your language training is paid for. But with the high competition for that one slot, should we be discouraged to apply? Guys, I don't have that scholarship, and the other four Filipinos with me in my university also don't have that scholarship. So just because you don't get this, it doesn't mean you have to give up right away, pack it in the drawer, and never open it again. Depending on the university, it's very similar to Japan. There are internal scholarships per university that you can apply for. And each unique scholarship has different requirements. They also have different benefits. And sometimes you can apply for more than one scholarship. So right now, in my university, because of my English test score, which was the requirement for that scholarship, I was given a discount on my tuition. And depending on my grade per semester, the grant can increase or decrease. So it really is performance based. But to qualify for the requirement, I submitted my TOEFL test score. I am also a Baekhyun Foundation Cultural Life Scholar. So there are some organizations outside the school that offer international students uh, different scholarships. And I was able to find out because of my school's portal. My school has announcements for international students to apply for possible scholarships. So you really have to be like persistent and a good researcher when it comes to looking for possible scholarships you can apply for. And of course, you have to perform well to meet the requirements for those scholarships. Now, the scary numbers, if you this is the hard truth of learning of like studying and living in Korea. First things first is the national government insurance. So I didn't know about this when I first went. It was quite literally a jump scare for me that I had to deal with right away because the national government insurance is 70,000 Korean won per month or 200 no 2,080 850 pesos per month. And while you do, every international student, every immigrant is required to pay this. It does give you medical benefits. Like when you have to go and you have like to the hospital or you have to have a checkup, that medical insurance does cover for it. But if you miss the payment for that month, you won't get the benefits, but you will still have to pay it in the next month. Like, let's say I miss my payment for March. Uh, in the next month, I will have to pay for both that month and for March, the month that I missed. So it is much better to pay for it on time so that because you have to pay it anyways, you will still get the benefit. For daily meals, it is 4,500 won or 9,000 won per meal. So around 200 to 390 pesos per meal. But if you want like the cheaper college standard cheapest meal, you can get away with spending around 100 pesos on cup noodles and an egg. But I really hope that you guys don't have to live like that if you do come to Korea. Uh, but again, the here are the important information on costs for your daily budgets and so on. Aside from these, there is housing. So some universities offer dormitories on campus. So most universities that have an international audience or international student program, they do have dormitories on campus. I live in the dormitory on campus and it's so helpful. to wake up and walk 5 minutes to class. It is a big increase of quality of life, and so the range is like what you see here on the slide. Depending on where you rent, where you go, and how many roommates you have, the price can vary. And aside from that are the miscellaneous expenses. So there's money for transportation, books, laundry, haircut, etc. Unfortunately, you are not permitted to work while you study because with a student visa, you're you're actually not allowed to work because there's this whole section of taxes, social security number if you want even a part-time job. So normally students aren't allowed to work, especially like international students aren't allowed to work while we study. But there are some exceptions that you may need to go to your university board or your Office of International Affairs to ask for permission. Sometimes there are programs that you can apply for and work in that will be registered as scholarship rather than salary. And sometimes you can be a teacher's assistant and the teacher will give you the allowance rather than having it registered as a job. That was a lot of information and not a lot of encouraging information. But if those didn't look like too big of an issue for you guys or you're willing to brave it, here's what you need to remember when you apply. So just like the schools in Japan, traditional Korean schedule starts the school year in the spring. Korean high school students graduate in the fall and then they're ready to go to college already in the spring. So most domestic students they apply and they enter in the spring. Filipinos graduate after spring. And in most of the Korean universities that I looked at the applications for, they do have admissions for both spring and fall. So it's okay to enter the fall for international students. Very similar to Japan, it's kind of expected that international students join in the fall. But as for specific dates, that depends on the university. In my university, the fall admissions for next year start in January to March already, in the beginning of that year. So you will have to prepare your documents while you're studying in school in the December, November, December. You have to prepare those for the application in January. But if you have options on different schools, I advise you look at each of them specifically when their admissions applications open because it will be different per semester, per university. And then the common requirements, very similar to the Japanese universities. You will need your high school transcripts. So your grades from high school, your graduation certificate, or a letter of expected graduation if you haven't graduated yet by the time the application documents are meant to be submitted. And these need to be notarized, right? So these schools in different countries, they have no idea what school you graduate, what high school you graduate. So you need to go to a notary like the apostille and have your documents notarized so that they can accept the documents. You also need a birth certificate and your English test score. It could be TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS, and again, not mentioned here, but it is very beneficial to take the SAT. If you are planning to apply for multiple schools in multiple countries, the SAT is a great standard like test that they can refer to. Then there is the essay, as mentioned, also in Japan, like during the application process, there are essay questions already. So you just need to answer it and they are very straightforward, trying to get to know what kind of student you are, what your plans are, why you are considering going to a different country. All of those things are part of the essay. And you need the recommendation letter from your teachers, or anyone who can speak of your character that's not a relative or like directly related to you. Then there's the interview. Aside from these, in some cases, the university could ask you to send follow-up documents. But that's case for case. I know it doesn't look like much, but that's also because there isn't much for this process. If you are willing to go for the ride, see how far it will take you, and like I encourage it. And there is a lot of growth and experience to be had when you're figuring it all out. Really, like I didn't have a mentor when I was going through this process, and I learned so much from this process. So if you are admitted, the university itself will coordinate with you for the visa process, which is a whole nother battle, to be honest. But really, one of the most important things I can advise you is that if there is only one like thing that you should take away from this lesson, it's be persistent and you need to know how to look. It's like doing research. You can't stop at one source. If one thing tells you something, look for another way to see if there's another opportunity to tell you something else. Yeah, and if you really want to do it, if you really want to go here, then you will figure it out as well. uh there wasn't a lot of time that was left for my talk. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to give as much information as I wanted, or like talk about my personal experience as I wanted. But if you want to ask for advice later on or ask me more questions, and if you forgot something or you weren't paying attention, it's okay. You can contact me. I use these three platforms the most, so feel free to reach out and ask me whatever. So, 네, 여러분, 감사합니다. 열심히 공부했습니다. And that concludes my country talk on South Korea.
Thank you so much, Noah. That concludes our talk for both Japan and Korea. Thank you everyone for your active participations. I've been seeing the questions in the Q&A box, and I hope that our beloved speakers were able to shed light on your curiosities and concerns about studying in Japan and Korea. But if not, the speakers did show their contact details. I'm not sure, wait, I think they did send it in the chat. If possible, could the speakers send their contact details as well in the chat for everybody to copy and search later on? On behalf of CAMP's 2023 facilitation team, I would like to extend our sincerest gratitude and appreciation to you for sharing with us your valuable insights today. We're so grateful for you accepting our panel invitation. Let's give a round of applause naman for Noah and Kyle. Thank you so much. I hope this session got you guys excited because we'll be having our next session very soon, which is China and Hong Kong. Thank you so much, guys, for your active participation in this session. I hope to see you guys in the next session. Thank you.